your host, and this is the Gold Digger Podcast, where we're digging the dirt and finding the gold in people's lives. Grab a cuppa, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Before we start digging for gold, I just want to acknowledge that I'm broadcasting from Wajak Noongar Budja here in sunny Perth and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of this land, both past and present. Today, the Gold Digger Podcast hits its first milestone. This is our 6th interview. Thank you, Jenny Gleeson, for joining us for this. And when I decided to do the podcast, I set myself a goal to get 6 interviews done before Christmas. And hopefully I'll be smashing that goal as I have another couple of interviews lined up this month. There's so many amazing women that I've met and am yet to meet to have a conversation with. But today I know you're going to feel the passion for living life despite what life sends your way in my next guest. But before we get down and dirty with Jenny and start digging around in her life, I want to share with you a quote from the book Enticed by Carrie Jones. Carrie says, you know, life fractures us all into little pieces. It harms us, but it's how we glue those fractures back together that makes us stronger. And I'm going to read that again. You know, life fractures us all into little pieces. It harms us, but it's how we glue those fractures back together that makes us stronger. This is certainly true for my life. I recently posted on LinkedIn about the concept of privilege and how I'm a white woman in Australia, so should consider myself privileged. However, when I reflect on my life and the multiple life traumas and challenges I've overcome, I didn't feel so privileged going through those challenges. People can be downright cruel, and that cruelty can pierce your very soul, shattering it. And I don't even think that some people do it consciously. I think they just indulge their impulses, fulfilling their own lusts, pursuing their own agendas. And people like myself and my guests are the carnage that's left on the side of the road in their wake. The work of reconstructing life after this type of carnage can go one of two ways. It can be a massive failure to reconstruct due to an inability to process the shock and grief associated with that life experience, or we can be resilient. And that can lead to a reconstructed life, and that reconstructed life can be amazing. We can give up or we can get up. And I'm really grateful that I was made of the stuff that leads to get up. And the good news is that even if you initially give up, you can always choose to get up with the right support. It's never too late and it's never too hard. There's no dark hole that you crawl into that you can't crawl out of. Believe me, because I know. I've scaled the walls of that black well of self-pity, shame, blame, and regret. And I want you to know that the strength you need comes as you start to climb. And if you slip back a step or two, it doesn't matter, because life's a journey and it has many ups and downs, and you can always just make those steps back up. And our next guest is no stranger to life's challenges. She's been fractured by life, but has a wonderful story to share with us. So I'm going to waste no more time, and I'm not going to even venture into telling her story. Welcome to the show, Jenny Gleeson.
Thank you so much.
It's so wonderful. So wonderful to have you here, Jenny. Before we get into all the story that is your life and fractured and reframed and reshaped, I want to ask you a question I ask all my guests, and that is, what is the animal that best describes your personality and character, and why did you choose that animal?
Okay, so that one was an easy one for me because I'm a Leo, so a lioness. Kind of makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense to me. Also, I'm very well known for being very protective of my family and my friends. So it's almost like you hurt one of them and I'll hurt you back. But, you know, I'm not that nasty. But I definitely am a lioness. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. So you know who the animal is you're working with today, Jenny. I'm feeling a kangaroo this afternoon. fiercely protective of their young. They're strong. They can travel at speed, bounding along. They fight off their predators. I'm sure you've seen a boxing kangaroo or two in your time.
Yes.
And they, that fighting can include drowning them while they're swimming, which I found was an interesting fact about the kangaroos. But Lovely. They're also curious animals. They're attuned to their environment and with excellent hearing and a keen eyesight. And the most important for me, they like to live in mobs. So they're very social and resourceful. They have been known to dig holes a mile deep to find water if there's no surface water readily available. But that's enough about me. Let's get digging in your life.
Yeah. Because that's interesting. A kangaroo is a little bit similar to a lioness by the sound of it.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Yeah, very, very similar. And I'm finding doing this animal thing with guests has really been intriguing. I'm learning a lot about animals in the process, obviously, but also about people and whether they feel affinities. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you just introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a bit about your journey so that we've got a bit of context for our conversation today, please?
For sure. Okay, so I'm 47 now and was referred to as a middle-aged woman the other day and nearly throat punched the person that said it.
Oh, you young
she's
things.
Right. She's right. I'm a middle-aged woman. So I feel very fortunate to have grown up in Perth. I mean, growing up, it was the most boring place on the earth, but it was a very safe place before the Claremont, serial killing. So I'm that age range. When I started going clubbing and stuff at that age. I grew up in a Christadelphian family. A lot of people have no idea what a Christadelphian is. Yeah. And I can honestly tell you, I don't really understand what they are or their religion because I left it as soon as I could. I just found it very restrictive, and women have to wear long skirts and hats, and very not female focused.
Yes.
I absolutely respect people's religion, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So my parents are 15 years apart. When my mum was 21, she had me. My dad was 36, so that's a massive age gap. Not one I would recommend either. There's too much difference in the generations.
Yes, yeah.
I'm an only child, though when I was 23, a sister rocked up out of nowhere.
Wow.
That no one knew about. My dad didn't even know. It's his daughter. My dad didn't even know about her. Unfortunately, we've had a really rocky 20 plus years, but we're getting there back. We're on track. We are very different. Yeah. I'm 5'8", brown hair, brown eyes, column. She's about 5'0", big cheekbones, pointy nose, blonde, green eyes, short, like really totally different people. So, there was no kind of like, oh my God, there's my long lost sibling. It was like, oh, that person, so that was really difficult for both of us. So when I was about 11, unfortunately my auntie had a massive asthma attack in front of me, my cousin, and my mum and a few other people, and died.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of where my mental health journey started, I guess.
Yeah, that's a massive trauma.
Yeah, it was a huge, massive trauma at the age of 11. Yeah. And I took on board, I blamed myself, as a young person who, you go back over and go, well, if I hadn't have taken my time to eat my sausages and beans, because I remember that's what I was eating, we would have got there quicker, then we would have been able to call an ambulance quicker, then she'd be alive still. And I, replayed that scenario in my head so many times and blamed myself so many times. And we all blame ourselves, but it's no one's fault.
No, it just is what it is.
And at 47, I can say that. But as an 11-year-old, I couldn't say that. Yeah, it started a string of tragedies in my life.
Yeah.
You know, for very, you know, from 11 till about 19, I had a lot of loss. So my nan died on my year 12 graduation night. She had long-term cancer, and I think I like to think she held out, you know, for me to graduate. And then when I got home, Mum rang and said that she'd passed away. And then at the age of 19, I had 4 people suicide. Really, really, like my best friend, someone I went to school with, an ex-boyfriend and a friend's boyfriend, all in 6 months.
Wow. That's a lot.
And I was just like, what is the point of life?
Yeah.
What the hell is the point?
A lot of grief.
Yeah, I just felt like I had this kind of death curse that all these people that I knew just kept dying, and you know, it's my fault, you know, that I must be the one point that is the cause of all of this. But you know, again, that's with my young head.
Yes. Yeah.
But as an older head with a lot of counselling and a lot of just doing the work, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't make people do things. You can't control people.
Correct. Yeah.
The only thing you can control is your emotion and your reaction to things. Yeah.
Just
so
want to hold space.
Tragedy.
Just hold space for a minute, if that's okay, Jenny, just to acknowledge that is a lot. Just for people that are listening who have loss.
Yeah.
I'm chair of the Grief Centre WA, and I know that when you have loss, you need the opportunity to process that loss, or else it will come into your life and manifest in unhealthy coping strategies, and can affect your physical health and your mental health. So just to share a little bit, so you know you're not alone here, Jenny. I lost my mother and 2 grandmothers in the 1 year. When I was 23. Terrible loss. I'd lost an aunt to cancer when I was in my early teens. So it had been distant but close, if that makes sense. She was my favourite aunt, but I hadn't seen her for a while. So it was kind of a bit more distant. But when it's parent and grandparents and so close together, they would it's 5 months apart for the 3 to be gone. It's a huge loss, and you have to process it. And I was fortunate. I had a nun teach on grief just 6 months prior to their death.
Wow.
And she just said to me, whatever it takes to get it out of your body, scream into the pillow, cry, write, sing, stomp, whatever it takes for you to just let that grief process through you, do. Because she shared the story of some young friend of one of her friends died of cancer, and the 2 daughters that survived, one was 18, the other was 12. The 18-year-old organised the funeral, and she was so together, and everyone was like, wow, she's coping so well. But she suicided 12 months after the death because she had not been able to process the grief. And I think grief is such a huge thing that our community doesn't really get and understand. So I'm holding space for your grief. I can get that that's a difficult space in your life that you had to really work through.
Well, so I ended up in hospital.
Yeah.
Yep. I ended up in a psychiatric unit for 3 months because of exactly what you just said. I just didn't, it was like bam, then bam, bam, bam. And I just didn't have that. I didn't have the wherewithal. I didn't have the knowledge of how to grieve, how to accept. Holy shit, they're big.
Yeah, they're big losses, big
losses. And I didn't know what was normal. You know, is it normal to just keep having people suicide? Is it normal for people to just keep dying?
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't sure what was normal and what wasn't normal. And then I just ended up in a heap in psychiatric unit. And that was kind of that. But
no, there's another trauma for you to get through.
But it's definitely true. your younger years and your teenage years, you need to get on top of stuff. Otherwise, it goes into a pattern of it's my fault,
Yes. Yeah.
When it's not your fault. You can't control. And one of the things that psychologist said to me when I was having counselling when I was in hospital, because I kept saying it's my fault, because my best friend actually had written me the letter and had gone to see my mum before he took his own life, and she, he said, "Oh, I'm really scared that Jenny's going to go," because I was into drugs and stuff. That Jenny's going to go down this really bad path, and I'm really worried about Jenny and all this. Mum didn't tell me until after. But he'd left me the note and said how much he loved me, and he knew I would never love him the same way.
Yeah.
Hence the guilt. But what this psychologist had said to me was, did you connect his car up? Because he gassed himself. Yeah. Did you buy the pipe? Yeah. Did you connect it up? Did you turn the car on? Did you lock all the doors so he couldn't get out? And I was like, no, of course not. And she goes, well, how is it your fault then?
Yeah.
You didn't do that. He chose that.
Yeah. Look, I had a friend who suicide, and I spoke to him on the day that it happened. In fact, I spoke to him right before it happened. And I did all the right things, what you learn in mental health first aid, all the right things. There's no way I could have known that was going to be his intention on that day, but it still hit me so hard when I heard. But then I think what I've come to through my experiences now with the grief centre and with life, I've come to the point where I and I think this is part of doing some peer work. It's respecting an individual's right to live their life the way that they want to live their life. And if that's end their life the way they want to end their life, that's part of respecting their autonomy and self-determination. And when I put it through that lens, then I'm okay with the action that they've decided to take, because then I can respect that that's them saying, I've had enough. I had postnatal depression after my fourth child. I daily struggled with suicidal ideation. I got to a point where I was ready to do it. Fortunately, my husband came back into the house after putting the kids in the car and found me sitting on the floor with the tablets in hand, and asked the right questions and got me some help. I didn't know I had postnatal depression. I just was reacting to life. But it was a determined effort on my part to then go, that's not my life journey. That's not where the Hayley Solich story ends.
Exactly.
I have to take responsibility for who I am in this moment. And that's kind of how I healed, because I took tablets for 3 days, and it sort of gave me the opportunity to not care about everything else, but to think about myself and get clarity. So if you're listening to this podcast, I just want to just make you aware that there are people that care, that there are people you can talk to. Lifeline, if you're in WA, you can contact the Grief Centre if you're struggling with the burden of grief and it's overwhelming for you. Just give us a call at the Grief Centre, and there's counsellors that can talk with you. Just because there is life, there's life after tragedy and there's life after difficulty. And I can say that with, having lost family members really tragically through car trauma, and also having lost people through suicide, and also just my own journey through postnatal depression. There is hope. And you can have a wonderful long life. If I reflect back, that was at my late 30s that I went through that, and I'm now 56 and I've had an amazing life, not without challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just wanted to throw that in there into the mix, Jenny.
No, and it's and there's absolutely no shame in asking for help either. Like I've rung, various different lines before, and, they're so non-judgmental.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so fantastic. And talking to a complete stranger is so liberating. And, because you haven't got a friend that you, I guess, feel that you're potentially dumping on, and then they're worried about you. You're just talking to a stranger. They put things in perspective. You let it go, and then you get off the phone and go, oh, no one else needs to know about that. That was awesome.
Yes.
That's it. And you move on, and then you ring again and you get someone else. And, I just think sometimes telling your story to strangers is so much more cathartic and helpful than talking to your friends and family about things.
Yeah, no, I think so. And the mental health emergency response line is also another line that you can call. And they've helped me with my, I've had children that have been suicidal or, having mental health challenges when they're in their teens, and they were able to talk me through and help me get clarity around what was going on. I had a child slamming the door, and her anxiety was expressed externally.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was making it worse by trying to get in to help her, to save her.
Yeah.
They were able to help me learn how to de-escalate. So some of these services can give you some strategies and tools. They're really helpful. I thought you had to sort of struggle through on your own. And when I was on that early mental health journey, it wasn't until I started working mental health service, I found out there is this wonderful world of information and support that you can access.
Yeah.
Which is
and there's no shame in accessing it.
Yes.
That's a big thing. There's no shame in it. No one knows you're accessing it if you don't want them to know.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there's can be, especially if you, there's the clinical side, which is really helpful, but there's also the peer work now and lived experience, and people who've been through the same kinds of experiences who can validate what's happening. Mm-hmm. And that in itself is a healing.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're not some weird person.
Yeah. That there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. So definitely encourage people to access services. We're just going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back really soon to continue with the Gold Digger podcast.
Voices going round in my head, I don't believe them, don't believe what they said, but the light is calling, it's calling, someone help me to find my way.
your life, Jenny, and I acknowledge there has been a lot. Which experience do you think was your defining moment? You know, that moment when you go, I can't do this anymore. I have to get my life back.
Yeah, that was a really challenging question. And I had like this big kind of spider diagram going, oh, this, and this. But I keep coming back to one where I'd left my husband, beautiful man, and will love him forever, but just not my man.
Yeah.
And I decided to just pack everything up and self-fund myself around South America doing voluntary work.
Awesome.
And I went away for 9 months and just worked all these different places. And just towards the end of my journey, I fell in love with this fiery Latino man and fell pregnant. I'd moved on to the next place and didn't realize I was pregnant, and was so excited when I found out that I was pregnant. I'd been wanting, my ex-husband and I'd been trying to have a baby, and now I was randomly pregnant. So I came home back to Australia, and I went and had the ultrasound, and she said it wasn't viable. And, you know, I just thought, well, this is a bit shit, isn't it? It's my fault again, like another tragedy. But it didn't miscarry on its own. I had to actually go and have it removed. And I just thought, oh, thank you again. Thanks. It's just not straightforward. It's going to be yuck. And I remember I'd just moved back to Kalgoorlie, and I didn't really know many people in Kalgoorlie because I'd only been there for about a year or 2 years before I left. And my dad was living in Kalgoorlie, and I was on the couch and I wouldn't get up, and I was pissed off with everything and all the grieving things that, you were talking about before. And my dad just went, that's enough. Up you get. You got to do something. You know, what's happened has happened.
Yeah.
And at the time I thought, you bloody old prick of a man, how dare you wouldn't have a clue what this is like.
Yeah.
But, I think it was that where I just went, like, as I said before, some things we can't control, but we can control how we react to them. And it was actually, I gave myself time. We all need to give ourselves time.
Yes.
I gave myself more time, and I still get upset. And that was 14 years ago. Yeah. I still think about how old she would be now and what she would look like, and I still get upset, but it gave me the passion and the drive to go, well, I can't have a baby. I haven't been able to have children. So what am I going to do that's going to be meaningful and that I can love? And that's when I decided to start my business. So I think when you say what to take my life back, it was that moment where I went, well, I can either grieve and be upset as we all need to, but how long am I going to do that for? Yeah. And I thought, no, I'm going to give my love to something else. So I poured it into my business. Yeah.
Well, that's, look, I can relate to your story. I had a child that was not viable too.
Yeah.
My fourth child. And, 1 minute you're full of hopes and dreams, and the next you are on the floor with nothing, empty arms. And it is a challenging place to be. And I don't care, if you've got 15 kids. It doesn't make up for the one that you were dreaming about. Yeah. And had started to think and feel and vision a life with. Yeah.
And I also think our society does not acknowledge that enough.
Yes.
My grandma, so Dad's mum, she lost 8.
Wow.
To having stillborns, to all sorts. And we basically would kind of, it's kind of like, oh, it happens a lot, and it bloody well does happen way more than we realise. But that doesn't mean that it's not hard.
Yeah. I had a friend who had 8 miscarriages between. She's got 3 children, but in between the first and the last 2. And it's a terrible loss.
It is.
It's a loss of hope. It's hope for the future. You know, there's so many things that happen in that process. Sorry, my camera's just disappeared suddenly. So just moving from that to, you know, that step taking forward, can you know, what, before we go, like, what would, I think you've kind of described, because the next question was around what was that darkest hour like for you? I think what you've described there is, you know, is the loss of hope of the future in one way. You know, a child represents so many things to people. It represents the next generation. It represents you defining yourself as the identity of mother, you know, and grandmother. And so with that closed door, there is a lot of loss of opportunity and sense of connection and purpose and place in community. So I'm just curious as, you know, at which point in that journey after your miscarriage did you process that grief?
Oh, so much grief. I think for me, it's just been time. It's just been time. It's been that, it's not my fault, because I blamed myself. I thought, I shouldn't have flown back. You know how they say don't fly in the first trimester or whatever. Yeah. If I hadn't have flown back, maybe I'd still be pregnant, you know, and if I'd known that I was before, I wouldn't have drunk so much or whatever. But it's just that accepting things sometimes. Yeah. And just going, well, obviously that wasn't meant to be. That was not meant to be. I was not meant to be a mum, but I can be a mum or very, very good auntie to so many others. Yeah. And I sometimes think I would have become probably quite absorbed with that child. Yeah. You know, and then I think, well, the daddy was in El Salvador. That would be a nightmare. Imagine taking a dude from El Salvador to Kalgoorlie. Holy shit. You know, so, you know, that there was no way I was going to live back in El Salvador. So it's almost like I missed a bullet, you know? Yeah, yeah. So I've just got to keep reminding myself of, really, it kind of was a blessing. Yeah. But at the same time, it is sad.
Loss. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a loss. It's like any kind of relationship that I've been in since, you know, that I went out with this absolutely disgusting man, you know, and I found out he cheated on me. And again, I look back and think, wow, I dodged a bullet there. Yes. Because now I'm with the most beautiful man. Yeah. You know, who accepts all of my foibles and my quirks, and he's bloody quirky too, which is great. But, you know, you just think, oh, you can get stuck on something and go, that's not fair. It's not fair. It shouldn't have happened. Or you can go, shit, yeah, that's not fair. Shouldn't have happened, but it has. And what can I learn? What can I take? What can I grow? Yeah. Moving forward to make life better. When I was 19 and those 4 friends all died, I remember writing to Dolly. Do you remember Dolly magazine?
Yes, yes.
And I said, this is what's happened to me. This is my story. And they wrote back, and bless them for writing back. And they said, thank you, but that's not really what our audience wants to hear about. Yeah. And I thought, well, no one wants to know, so I'm not even going to acknowledge it.
I'm so sorry that was your journey and that response, you know.
Yeah.
That's a bit sad, because when you do, you know, at that age, you're so malleable and shaping your identity and who you are, and to be, you know, to not listen to. And I know to be dismissed like that. And I know, you know, I was sexually abused as a child, and I remember, you know, the first time I told somebody and they went and told adults, and the adults said, don't be stupid, you know. It dismissed my experience, and and then it took me, you know, 30 years to find my voice after that, because what's the point in speaking up? No one listens. But now I have a voice.
Yeah.
I have a voice and I'm a force. The generation that was, they had a different way of viewing the world, and these things were not talked about.
No.
And we are a very different world in 2022 to what we were in 1975.
Yeah. Which is the year I was born. So well done.
Oh, there you go. Pick the year. Well, I was 1966, so I've got a decade up on you. Of historical knowledge, and I think we've shifted so far. And some days I go, there's good shifts, and then there's not so good shifts. And
I was just about to say that. Sometimes I think we've swung too far.
Identity becomes a big problem. When you remove all of the structures and boundaries, then we have a struggle of who we are. And I feel like that's what sort of happened, it's kind of like claim who you want to be, which is all good. And I'm for self-autonomy and determination, but for some that becomes a crisis.
Yep. And overwhelming. Too much choices, overwhelming. Too many. Yep. Too many choices.
It's like going to the supermarket. Back in my day, you had a choice of one margarine or another, not six. And so you didn't have the struggle of which one will I choose. And when you think about stress, so much less stress, because choice often results in stress. Stress of choosing. So I think it's anyway, we could go on a whole lot of stuff around.
I'll just finish that bit off. I'll round that off if you like. But
sure.
I used to work in hospitality, and I used to work at the Garden restaurant, which was in the Hilton.
Yes.
So it's 5-star dining. I still laugh at how I got that job. Who knows? But I served a doctor, and he was a plastic surgeon, and he was quite well regarded. He was very well known. And we used to have these little bread trolleys that we'd push out with all different types of bread on them.
Yeah.
And I pushed my little trolley out. I was really nervous, pushed my little trolley out. And I said, what bread would you like? And he said, just give me one. There's way too many other choices in my world.
Yes.
I don't care. Just give me whatever bread.
Yes.
And I remember just thinking, God, like you can't make a choice. Like you're the most, I didn't say anything, of course, I would have lost my job. But I was thinking, what do you mean? I don't have all these choices. You've got all these choices.
Yeah.
And you are leaving it up to me.
Yeah.
And I always remember that. Because I thought no matter who you are, life can get overwhelming.
Yes, definitely.
And you just want someone else to make a choice for you.
Yeah. And actually
too hard.
And actually I would say that is a sign of burnout right there.
Yes.
Is a sign of burnout, that the energy required for a simple choice of which bread has become too hard. Then that's the person who really needs to take time out. And going back to if we go back to the start of the conversation, and you talked about losing your aunt and then losing these 4 people in sequence over a 6-month period. Many years ago, I did an interview with the psychologist. And she said, we're sort of geared in a 10-year period for 2 to 3 big life events that are stressful. 2 to 3. And then if you imagine it's like a stone wall, and you've got 2 to 3 big rocks, and then you get little stones that go in between those stones. And the little stones are things like driving the car behind a slow car.
Yeah.
Being in a queue that's long.
Yeah.
Those. Yeah. But if you have combinations of all those little stones on these big stones, then you get to a tipping point.
Yeah.
And this is where breakdowns happen.
Yes.
And so we have to bring into our life something that takes some of those little stone impacts out. So that it doesn't build up. So when you come and I look at my own life, and I look at a 10-year period where I lost parents, I lost a child, I'd experienced hardship, financial hardship. I'd moved states, I'd moved jobs. We'd had to move out of homes. There was, diagnosis of illness, of brain cancer for in-laws, all of those things, finding out about a child being molested and kids trying to commit suicide. I go, how the heck am I standing?
Yeah.
How did I walk through it? And I take it back to that very first conversation with the nun, to be honest.
Right.
And she gave me permission to express my grief.
Yep.
And to let the stress out of my body in whatever way I know that works for me. And for me, it's singing, and prayer probably is part of my routine of when it gets too much, I just like, God, God out there, yeah, I need your help, you know. But and friendships and talking, and you know, because complex trauma is healed through time, talking in tears.
Yes.
So permission to cry, permission to talk about it, permission to give yourself time to get over things. You know, they're really important parts.
Really important. And it doesn't mean you're weak. See, I associated that with weakness as well.
No.
You know, and it actually doesn't mean that you're weak. It actually means you're strong.
So there's a key for all of those people listening out there. Yeah, don't load up people with your expectations. Just let them have a journey through life. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I try also to only give an opinion if someone asks me for it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, who am I to tell people what to do?
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Unsolicited advice. It's not helpful.
Yeah. Not helpful.
Yeah. Well, I commend you for your bravery and your willingness to share yourself publicly in order to help others. And I have one final question for you. Where to from here?
Oh, for me. Well, I actually want to do keynote speaking.
Yeah.
I think that what I have to share will be helpful. I'm very pragmatic. It's not about, oh, poor Jenny, or, you know, oh, this is a horrible journey or horrible story. It's more like, you know, if there's little pieces of snippets of things that I say that will help someone, I think that's why I'm here, to be honest. I think, you know, I went through a lot of stuff young to be able to help people and have a positive impact older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's where I want to go.
I wish you every success with keynote speaking and all of the other things, the amazing things that you're doing in the recovery college space, etc. And thank you for coming on the show today. It's been really wonderful to meet you.
Yes,
to hear your story and to share this time with you. And I'm sure we could speak for hours if we had the opportunity.
I think so.
Yeah. So
I'm sure we'll meet one day in person.
We definitely will, because we both are contributors to Mel's wonderful magazine, Honeybee Lifestyle Magazine. If you're listening, we're both contributors to the same mag, and you can get that online. Just look up Honeybee Lifestyle Magazine and go and subscribe, because that's an amazing magazine that's looking at normalizing disability and it's uplifting and inspiring. Thank you, Jenny. You've been listening to the Gold Digger podcast. I'm your host, Hayley Solich. We've been digging the dirt with Jenny Gleeson. And if you've enjoyed the show, please consider following, leaving a comment, and sharing this podcast with your friends on social media. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.